So in problem number 2, the financial literacy example, it says the graph shows the amount of money the Rockwell family budgets for food each month. Write an equation to find the total amount of money, C, budgeted in any number of months, M. Then use the equation to determine how much money the Rockwell family should budget for 12 months. So just like in the previous problem, we use this idea that our output is equal to a constant rate of change times an input value plus whatever a starting value might be. So let's start with the constant rate of change. In this case, because we're not using x and y, we're using m and c, our constant rate of change, or our slope, is going to be equal to the change in c, because that is the vertical or output or y-axis, divided by the change in m. So think back to chapter 3. When we had points on a graph, we were able to find the change in c, or the change in y, by finding that vertical change. Now this is going to be a little bit difficult because these aren't perfectly lined up with both grid lines. So we're going to have to use the values on the points and figure out, okay, we were at $625. Now this point is at $1,250. So what's that change from $625 to $1,250? If you're not sure, we could find the difference, which means we're going to subtract 1,250 minus 625, which ends up being $625. Then we need to find the change in our number of months, which would be right here. So we were at 1 month, now we're at 2 months. That change from month 1 to month 2 is a change of 1. So that means our rate of change is $625 every month, or we could just write it as $625 per month. So now we know our constant rate of change. We need to figure out what's the starting value. So just like in the previous problem, if we know that every month they are budgeting $625, and at month 1 they start at $625, well, we could go back to month 0. So if we go back 1 month and subtract $625, well, what's 625 subtracting 625? And that would be 0. So our starting point would be at 0, 0. So now we have a constant rate of change, which is 625. And we have a starting value, which is 0. Now we just need to figure out what's our input and our output. Well, our output is always what's on the vertical axis. And in this case, we're using C to represent our output. So our output is C, or the total cost. And our input is always the horizontal axis. And in this case, we're using M to represent the number of months. So M is going to be our input. We end up with this equation. C equals 625 times the number of months plus 0. Now you remember that this is your identity property. Any number plus 0 is always equal to that number. So we don't see that plus 0 in our equation. We always take it away and just write our equation as 625 times M. So then the next part of that is use the equation to determine how much money the Rockwell family should budget for 12 months. So if we know M is going to be 12 months, which comes from the problem, in place of M in this equation we just wrote, we will substitute 12. So C equals 625 times 12. And when you multiply that, which might take a little bit of multiplication, you get C equals 7,500. Or our answer, which would be for 12 months, they should budget $7,500 for food.